So I think this is Atlas's fourth time working with the hose, and I believe it's the first time working with the little spray nozzle before the water would just come out. Um, so I definitely could be a little bit slower to introduce the nozzle because he gets a little scared there. He's like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, like I probably should have just barely squeezed it, just a little trickle comes out instead of just going full blast there. Um, but he does come right back, not a big deal. And this is good practice for later. Like these things happen, unfortunately. We try to keep them to a minimum, but since I've been doing so much like little baby steps and building his confidence, he was like, then it's not that big of a deal. So he gets a little scared. It's okay. He comes right back. I'm just gonna reinforce him. And now that I know that was too much, I need to go back and just do littler steps with the hose and with the water so that it's not gonna scare him. So there, that's much better. That's how I should have done it in the very beginning. I think I was thinking too much, like he was a little bit further along than I thought he was, that he could handle a little bit more. But that happens as well. You're like, oh yeah, he's totally fine with this, even though I did change something specifically with the Mustangs. That's something that happens quite often with them. But I'm just gonna go back to just conditioning the hose. When the water comes out the hose, you get a treat. Water comes out the hose, treat. And pairing it with food so he has that good positive association with it. So again, just a little bit of a spray. I spray for a second, I click, I turn off the hose, I give him this rewater. So just pairing that together. Now it's obviously I'm going back and doing it since the nozzle is on the hose. I'm doing it for this horse, and or any horse that's sensitive. If your horse is not as sensitive, you might not have to do this step at all, and that's great. It's going to take you less time, but this is important for him. So I rather do too many steps and have the behavior really solid than going too fast. And that's just kind of a experience thing, knowing your horse thing and kind of knowing what they're going to be okay and not okay with, just like with every other behavior. But water on a little bit longer this time and then reinforce. And again, the whole time I'm spraying away from him. He's not quite ready for me to spray toward him yet. I want to make sure he's nice and relaxed with just that spray away. I also should have brought out his start button. I feel like he would have felt like he had a little bit more control of the situation. He would know when that water's coming off versus like I'm just spraying kind of randomly here from his perspective. So, and I had used it in the other times, but I think this was like the longest gap between the two behaviors, I think, or between treating it. So I just needed to be more consistent with bringing that cone, and making sure that he can use it because it does work really well. So I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm just letting him just see the water and pairing it with the food, and I'm bringing it a little bit closer. Again, little baby steps like that. You don't want to go from spraying away to spraying on, specifically with this horse quite yet. I'm doing just like a little bit closer, then a little bit closer, and then I'll be focusing on his feet as the first part of him that I actually am going to spray. But just a little bit. You can see he's a little bit tense. He's kind of arching his neck a little bit. His ears come forward. He's kind of trying to get a look at it. So a little bit of tension there, but not too bad. So again, you can see his neck arc. He's looking down, trying to see the water. Just kind of having it for just a second and then feed. Just a second and then feed. So I'm not going to just spray and wait for him to like relax or anything. I'm just showing him a little bit of a spray and pairing that with food. So just kind of the same thing as the click, like he hears a sound, he gets reward. He hears a sound, he gets reward. And he's kind of just same thing, like water comes out and that means that food's coming. That's all I'm trying to do at this point. So it doesn't really matter what he's doing. I don't want him to go into flight. I want to keep it at a low enough level where that doesn't happen, but I'm not looking for a specific behavior from him at this point. We're just conditioning it. That's all we're doing. That was a little bit better reaction from him. When he looked at it, he didn't like arch his neck quite as much, so that's really good. I'm going to work on this other side because he can kind of see it more on his right side there. Now I'm going to do the same kind of thing on his left side. So again, nice little pieces of this behavior, not going too fast. And he's wanting to touch it, so he did that all on his own. I was trying to like check my watch there, and he's wanting to reach out to the hose, so I'm going to go ahead and reinforce that even though I didn't ask for it. I do want him to be brave, and I want to reinforce those times where he is trying to interact with the object that I'm working with. So that's a really good sign. Same thing here, he wants to kind of look, and he's wanting to participate here. He's kind of looking toward me and seeing like, am I going to do something? Are you going to spray that water again so I can earn some reinforcement? So that is good. That looks good. Less arcing in the neck, and that also could be just the positioning of the water. Since the water was kind of more in front of his face, he was kind of trying to look at it. But it could also be he's a little bit more relaxed, so you kind of have to take in the context. I'm not quite sure. I want to say it's probably a little bit of both. I do think he was just trying to look at it because it was in front of his face, but I do think he's also a little bit more relaxed than he was. So yeah, because when I move it back to that side, he still does have a little bit of an arch, but not as much as he did before. I also need to be careful with moving it from side to side really fast. Probably should just work on one side and then work on the other side. So that's something I can improve on. But that looks pretty good. He did well there when I switched sides, so that was really good. He didn't seem very worried at all that I had went to the other side. That's a good sign. And I really want to stay on one side or the other. You want to be careful not to spray it directly in front of him. I don't want to get pawed or kicked or anything because they might startle and strike out with one of those front feet. And he's just not quite ready for that. I want him to be able to see it. It comes from the side. It gets closer to that shoulder on either side. And that's where I'm going to start spraying to, is on those front feet first. So I just want to be very systematic. It comes from like out to the side and then it comes closer and closer and closer. So that was really nice. I'm going to go ahead and end the session and give him a jack putt on the ground here.